Всем привет в дождливой, красивой, изумительной, удивительной Москве. Прежде чем мы с вами перейдем к теме, дискутировать на которую, по-моему, бессмысленно, потому что никто же не против здесь здорового образа жизни. Я хочу сказать, что позавчера мэр города объявил о том, что Москва выдвигается, я имею в виду Сергея Собянина, на право проведения в Москве.
Yesterday, Sergei Sabanin announced that Moscow by 2030 will have the World Expo, and it will be turned into a real festivity. Why did I say so? This discussion, I guess, is a redundant one. We are either involved in that healthy and wealthy lifestyle, or as of Monday, we are supposed to initiate this new lifestyle. But we sometimes extend this particular period, and we start from winter or spring, but everyone understands healthy lifestyle in his own format. Not to drink, not to smoke, just not to eat much, to sleep well, sleep longer, move more, and communicate with children. And Moscow provides wonderful opportunities, and we have been turned into a large garden, into a large venue, and I am a Muscovite in the third generation, and I would like to thank Muscovites, and Moscow should become better and better, and I am a recipient of those services provided by Moscow. Whom else would I like to introduce at this panel? Niels Lund, Vice President, Head of Program.
Novo Nordisk. Hi, Niels, if he's here. Is he? Okay. And also we'll have Mikhail Arutyunov, заместитель руководителя департамента спорта.
The head CEO of the Department of Sports, Yulia Rajaeva, the first deputy chairman, and she represents here the social aspect of Moscow city life, and much depends on you. Lim Tek Lim.
Кстати, из панели все были в Сингапуре? Привет, Lim.
Everybody visited Singapore, wonderful city, and Dmitry Tarasov, the director of Moscow Marathon Race. And he is looking forward for the opportunity to work with us. And Arsen Galasyan, and he is very busy with other sessions in medical cluster in Skolkovo. I am the senior vice president of Skolkovo health sector, and we're going to speak about it in more detail. And the project is a wonderful one. All the speakers are there. Everybody is prepared to have a say. But before we get started with our discussion, let me just say a few words about the healthy lifestyle and what is the cost of this initiative. I would like to give the floor to Niels Lund, and he is going to dwell upon some key theses of his own position with regard to this particular issue.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation again to come back to Moscow Urban Forum. I had the pleasure of being in Moscow in 2019 in person, and I also participated in 2020 in December at the virtual session there. My name is Niels Lund. I'm heading up the Cities Changing Diabetes program, which is a public-private partnership to address diabetes and obesity in urban settings. And we now have more than 35 cities part of the network these days, and the network is growing, including with Moscow, which is really, really exciting. So why diabetes? Well, diabetes is rising at an alarming rate worldwide. Over the past decade, diabetes prevalence has grown or even almost doubled, and is on a continuous upward trajectory. And this is a function of the way that we live. It's a function of economic growth and prosperity that we are seeing all over the world. It's not a rich country's problem alone. This is a challenge for societies all over the world. And 3 out of 4 people with diabetes live in low and middle income settings. So it's not just the problem in Copenhagen, where I'm from, or New York, or Moscow. This is a global program. and one that will continue to grow. The good story is that type 2 diabetes, which is often lifestyle related, in many cases can be prevented. So we can do something about it. And estimates suggest that up to 50% of the cases can be prevented by adopting a healthy lifestyle, a healthy diet, sufficient physical activity, and maintaining a healthy body mass index, and also making sure that you don't grow too much around the waist. Those are factors that will be important and are essential to do or to work on. But it's easier to say than to do. And I think everyone who has tried to be on a diet knows how difficult it is both to lose weight, but also to maintain a healthy lifestyle, because there are so many things that can come in the way. And this is what I'd like to focus on in my talk here, because it's important to understand what those barriers to healthy lifestyle is, because unless you understand those barriers to healthy lifestyle, then you cannot design interventions that will address them. Then the interventions are going to fail. So there are some personal factors. Your genomic setup is what it is, and you cannot change how your DNA looks like and how your body was produced originally. And there are also some things that are intrinsic to us, tastes, preferences, and personal preferences that are at play here. Those are probably not that difficult. They are difficult to change. Lack of information is also important. We know health literacy is essential to have in a population to advance healthy lifestyles. But what I'd like to focus on particularly are those social and cultural factors that play in and often stand in the way of doing the right things. And the right things here being the ones that will help you lead a healthy lifestyle. Those are, when we look at the social factors, there are financial constraints, time constraints, resource constraints, and geographic constraints. I think the obvious one is the financial constraint. You know, if you are poor compared to you're rich, you have fewer resources to pay fitness club memberships, buy healthy foods that are often more expensive, but also factors such as time constraints. For example, and we see that in many of the cities that are part of the network, particularly in the big cities, if you spend 1 hour, 2 hours commuting to and from work, you won't have time to cook a healthy meal for your family, and you probably don't have time to exercise either. These factors are important, as are the geographical constraints, where you know the physical locality that you live in. You may also influence your ability to exercise or not. If you live in an area with a high crime rate, that might influence your ability to exercise also. Or if you live in a neighborhood where there are no really good groceries with a lot of vegetables, then you know what can you then do? These are social factors, and when in comparison to the cultural factors, the social factors are probably easier to deal with than the cultural factors, because cultural factors, you know, we really go on the inside. I, place my hand on my heart here, because this is very emotional. The factors that relate to our culture, and one, for example, is the traditions and conventions that we all are part of. In our program, Citizens Diabetes, there's one factor that is similar all over the world, and it is, you can say it in a sentence: when we meet, we eat. So food is a cultural fabric. It's what binds people together, and you know, we will always celebrate being together in the family around holidays and so on by eating. And I hope you can see that, you know, changing these traditions are difficult, and of course I think from now on and until eternity we will still eat when we meet, but maybe we should look at what we eat when in those situations, and maybe eat a little bit less, or eat maybe a healthy alternative. But it's understanding that this is a fundamental cultural fact that you know, so deeply ingrained in us, that unless you understand that, then your interventions will really be difficult to address. Also, in the one about self and others, what is normal? That really is dependent on who you are with. There was an interesting study made in the US some years ago, I think, or a decade ago, where they looked at people's weight in different army bases around the US. And if you lived in an army base where the BMI was high, then you also gained weight. But if you moved to an army base where the weight was lower, you lost weight. So this is it's almost where obesity becomes a socially contagious. And maybe that's probably stretching the argument a little bit too far. But who you are with and what you feel is normal does influence both how you eat, how you exercise, and also how you look at your physical appearance. So the social factors and the cultural factors are important, and it's we have over the past and I would say over the past couple of years in City Change Diabetes really looked to see how urban environments both can be the problem, but also how they can be the solution to many of these challenges. And that's where we come to Moscow, because over a little more than a year, we have worked with Strelka, the Center for Urban Anthropology, at Strelka KB, the Endocrinological Dispensary of Moscow, and the Moscow Diabetes Association, in trying to understand in a Russian context and in a Moscow context what these social and cultural barriers are. And the research is still being finalized, but I'd like to share a few perspectives here that will show you how what some of these barriers are and how Moscow has also tried to address it. So, Moscow is not different from anywhere, any other place in the world. There are barriers to healthy lifestyle, but it's understanding what those barriers are that is really important. In Moscow, we find or the study finds that people with type 2 diabetes are aware of the importance of healthy lifestyle, particularly healthy diet and physical activity. So that's a good starting point, but there are things that stand in the way of that. And for example, if we look at men age 65 and older, these are this is the group that is probably at the highest risk of developing diabetes even further. And there are some factors that are important here. Social isolation is important here, and is particularly true in this age category. Men, much less than women, are unlikely to form longer-term friendships or try to belong to larger groups. Women are better at that, the study finds, and it's something we see in many places also outside of Moscow. Men have a passive attitude towards health. It's almost a standing joke, but you will notice that many men will never go to the doctor, only if their wife tells them to. And you can, in a more academic sense, reframe that into having a passive attitude towards health. But unless we change that habit, men will be more unlikely to be diagnosed earlier and to catch some of those complications that will be lead to significant morbidity and also earlier death. Gender roles are also playing in here. We find in this group that these men do not usually cook themselves, and they're much less likely to get an appointment with a doctor. They are more likely to drink alcohol and eat without constraint compared to women. And the research suggests that this might be a sign of a form of masculinity among men that where eating a salad is considered something more for women. And it is important to understand these gender roles and also what the attitudes are with men to be able to find new solutions. Then obviously there are the financial restrictions that we find in many places, and also, as I mentioned, the eating traditions and habits. In short, it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. At least that's what we would say in Denmark. But also the change is for particularly this age category is a challenge. I think it's important to say that these are some factors that we see in many places around the world, and we're then through the City Change Diabetes program work to address them in new and innovative ways. And I think when we look at Moscow, there are some interesting and relevant initiatives that both will address the issue, but that Moscow can also share with other cities around the world to address the challenges here. The one is two examples. The one is the Moscow Longevity Program that does tackle social isolation, works to include people that are older than average. There are examples or facilities for including people who are less financially able to provide those to pay for the cost that would otherwise be relevant here, and it provides equal opportunity. Probably one of the things that the program I think struggles with is that 91% of the participants are women. So in terms of being able to bring in the men, maybe there's room for improvement and also for inspiration to make sure that the men I just talked about before will also be center stage for that initiative.
Niels.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a matter of curiosity. What is your routine sports activity on a daily basis? Yes.
I bicycle to work. Also this morning. So I have a 7-kilometer bike ride each way, and then I try to. I'm one of these guys who has a fitness watch, so I try also to get my 10,000 steps. I don't make it every day, I must admit, but I do try. And then in the last couple of years, I have cut down on the red meat and eat more fish now.
Okay, so, thank you.
But I'm 54, and so I can also see the physical decline almost every day when I get up. I certainly can feel it in my body. So I'm also very aware that I probably need to do something to change the outlook for my future.
I have to say, congrats with your football team beating our Russian football team. I do it with certain, I would say, reluctancy, but we really hope your team goes further in the Euro Cup. Thank you, Niels. Stay with us because we'll have some more discussions to share with you. And I want to, я хотел бы пригласить Михаила Арутюну, который...
I would like to invite Mikhail Arutyunov. He followed what Niels has just mentioned. What are the geographic financial resources? And Moscow contributes a lot onto that program. No matter that serious international events are not held in Moscow due to the pandemic. Nevertheless, Moscow offers quite a number of opportunities, and we have quite an efficient programs. Maybe you just enhance some new ones, introduce some new ones. What about your Department of Sports, and what about your healthy and lifestyle? And you are responsible for that, and you are being criticized for that. Thank you, dear friends. My best regards to everybody. If we talk about the culture of the healthy lifestyle, right after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, we've been witnessing some kind of a decline of interest to sports, to healthy lifestyle as a whole. The priorities were different, and as of 2010, thanks to some subjects of sports and organizations, the society started somehow recovering the interest to sports. And nowadays, healthy lifestyle has become a trend, and it does not presuppose just the systematic sports events and PTs, but it contributes to the image of a well-to-do and successful person. Sports has become indispensable for the majority of our citizens, and when we organized the sociological interviewing, we recognized that about 8 million people go in for sports in Moscow. And of course, we do contribute a lot onto the infrastructure, even in that painstaking period. More than 10 sports facilities were constructed, and minor-sized the Pensacola sector and Luzhniki sector. This is a standalone facility, and it encompasses about 100 sports venues. And I do work in Luzhniki myself. And when I come to Luzhniki every day, and hundreds are trained or are self-trained, which is real great.
So sporting has become a daily attribute, a rite, some rituals for our daily life. So aside from all the classical kinds of sporting activities, this year of the pandemic has forced us to see what we can do for the population, considering the limitations of being together, social distancing. So we have published several online stories regarding sporting. So the last few years, most of the parks and the parking areas, we have seen the installation of workout sites. Many people don't know how to actually use them. Do some push-ups or pull-ups, whether a right way or wrong way. People don't know that. So we have developed, together with professional coaches, some training or exercising programs. I have uploaded them to the internet. So just by reading the QR code, anyone can download special exercising instructions so that the exercise is more effective and efficient. Along with a project called Moscow in the engineer's eyes, we have developed Scandinavian walking routes. And there are two purposes here. First is to show the neighborhood of the Moscow the person lives in and combine it with exercising. We have developed over 250 kilometers of those walking routes. Also, according to our data, there are still some key barriers for exercising. People are lazy, financial limitations, but those are no excuses. And they don't change with time. People are used to finding an excuse. 50 or 60 years ago, sporting was in the center of propaganda, healthy lifestyles, and they were so-called ready for work, labor, and defense of your motherland. That was a program at that time. Now there are new approaches. There are sporting communities, societies. Well, if you have some more time, you don't have much time, but whatever you'll manage. Me and Dmitry Tarasov, we met in 2010, a long time ago, and Dmitry was engaged in advertising a certain sporting brand, and I was just engaged in general advertising. So Dmitry, using some common acquaintances, we started to talk to each other, and he said, look, I have an initiative. I would like to have a running race in Moscow. Oh, that'll be cool. And I said, where are we going to run to? And that was 2010. Remember what was happening with the city traffic, how the cars were being parked. Yeah, good comparison. Dmitry tells you nobody is going to take part. Everybody will take his car and go to a restaurant, have a coffee or a drink. No, we have to do that. We have to do that. So we joined efforts, and actually there were some runners, and there was an exponential growth. In a year or two, Dmitry comes to me again, look, we have to start running in the parks. The world is doing that. I said, Dmitry, come on. Parks are there for, frying kebabs. People work out their dogs there. So people like Dmitry, there are not many of them, but there are enough of people like that. There are super active running community, jogging community, triathlon people, other fans, other activities have a lot of supporters. So we in our sporting department, we help as we can, we participate. The communities that prepare and offer convenient, comfortable activities for the citizens. So this is kind of symbiosis, cooperation. Somebody knows about Moscow Marathon? No. Now everybody knows what is a Moscow Marathon race. So our objective is to draw attention to other sporting activities, other events, and there are stories like that. There are many of them available for citizens. So overall, as I said, 1 minute. Okay, just 1 minute. We'll save that minute for later. A question to you. Within this pandemic time, have you seen any decline in sporting activities? Yes, we've seen limitations, social distancing. People are getting out less. Well, considering the limitation, outdoor activities have declined. Yes, whatever we could, we shifted into online. So together, the Moscow multifunctional services centers, we have started so-called sporting weekends. So in YouTube and in Zoom, some professional coaches, sporting celebrities show their exercises or coach on different sporting events. And this is not just video loaded in YouTube, but it is a feedback provision also within Zoom. So you have a coach on stage, and there are dozens of coaches that help people watching that in Zoom and actually correcting their activity. Of course, we're trying to cope with the challenges. Some of them we cannot actually cope with, but we're trying hard so that people in their homes or in their country houses do engage in sporting. Now let us move to Singapore again. Most of not good people want to go to Singapore. They take in.
To keep attracting people to your beautiful, beautiful, lovely city. Welcome.
Thank you very, very much. And greetings from Singapore. Before I start with some comments, just let me say that Sport Singapore is a body of the Singapore government, and we are responsible for sport promotion and the promotion of physical activity and fitness, as well as for developing all aspects of sport from community to high-performance sport, like the Olympic athletes, as well as to build all the public sport infrastructure. In reading the synopsis of many of the speakers, I find that many of us are doing very much the same things. But I would just perhaps want to contribute 3 points of emphasis that we have found in our experience to be very important. The first point I would make is how we work across other government agencies, because there are many parties in government that have in some way or another responsibility to ensure that the environment for healthy living and for sport and fitness is attended to. And so over the last 10 years, we have been increasing the ability for government agencies like the Land Transport Authority, that's responsible to ensure that our roads are accessible and that cyclists can commute and at the same time exercise. We work very closely with the National Parks Board, is responsible to build 300 kilometers worth of park connectors for easy access for joggers, runners, cyclists, and for outdoor living. The Housing Development Board is responsible for not just building public housing projects, but also to create healthy districts. We're talking about the environment. And of course, the health promoting agencies from the Ministry of Health are people that we need to work together with the Ministry of Education. Working together as different government agencies, I think many of us will recognize, is not the easiest thing to do. We need to be able to align not just in our master plans for infrastructure, but also on policy. And one interesting point I would like to make is that if you're involved in the work of health promotion, you would necessarily be focusing on the minimal standards that you are trying to achieve in the general population. So we talk about walking and steps and counting steps. Well, that's a sort of a minimal standard. And even between the Health Promotion Board and ourselves in Sport Singapore, we have to negotiate as to how we interpret the WHO's 150 minutes moderate intensity exercise. What does that include? What does that not include? So working together across government agencies has been absolutely critical. The second point I'd like to be able to make is that as a government, we have made sport fitness very accessible to the general population. And that's very important because you will find that by and large affordability across multiple dimensions of spending pressures in a modern lifestyle obviously puts sport fitness programs possibly as a lower priority. And so we have made available together with the Health Promotion Board a very wide range of free programming. We have also provided a lot of very affordable access to sport facilities as well as good quality sport programs. The next thing we've done is to make sure that there is a sport facility within a 10-minute walking distance from every home. That means building a network of facilities between our sports facilities, those that are owned by our schools, as well as private institutions. Now, the benefit of working across agencies is that we're able to then put in place a very strong data collection plan. And so we are in the process now of building what we call the data exchange and looking very carefully at all the data that we want to collect to be able to inform decisions. And this is not just a data exchange between government agencies, but also with the private sector. So, for example, we have a very strong relationship with a sport retailer called Decathlon, coming out of France. We work very closely with them to be able to understand spending patterns, what people are interested in, what they are buying, what is their average spend on sport and physical activity. At the same time, we, on our side, help Decathlon think about where to locate their stores, their warehouses, and to be able to see if we can integrate them in close proximity to our sporting facilities. So being able to datafy everything and work very closely together is absolutely critical. Now, what else did COVID bring for us? And this is the third point I want to make. And that is we now have very easily pivoted to digital. And when I say pivot to digital, I think people are more familiar now with a certain level of online exercise activity, easy access in your home. And what we've now created and are looking to flesh out is what I would call a virtual sports center and create a marketplace that we've called our Active Singapore Circle, where businesses, coaches are able to come together and collaborate and provide their services to companies, to schools, to the general consumer man in the street. Again, this is a very important data play, but an interesting factor for this is that it is a model that's allowing a much stronger coach-enabled approach to be able to coach health and wellness. The ability through technology now to reach from one coach to many has been enabled by digital. So I just would like to make those 3 points to the many good points that all of you have already contributed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lim. Very few people remember that 15 years ago, Moscow lost to Singapore by 1 vote bidding for Youth Olympic Games, which then Singapore successfully ran in 2010. I think you owe us that vote, and you should support Moscow bidding for Expo, and I insist on that, okay? Can we count on that vote? Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you very soon in Moscow after the pandemic is over. And
thank you very much.
We go to Yulia. Yulia, мы с вами коллеги, вы про соцполитику.
Julia, we're colleagues. We're both discussing social policies. And I'm sure that social policies is just basically the main consumer of the healthy lifestyle concept. Both the customer and the consumer, the motivator and the provoking party. So how are you going to motivate us, Muscovites, so that we bring you less problems in healthcare by living healthy lifestyles? Yes, indeed. For us, the healthy lifestyle is, on the one hand, an important variable, input variable, and I've seen the questionnaires, 70% healthy lifestyle, but when further questions followed, like, what is your regular sporting activities? Oh, 15 minutes a day I'm walking to my job site, and say, well, healthy food, what's healthy food? Well, traditional rich Russian salad and lots of sandwiches, that's healthy food. Well, as we see it, it is important, very important, to divide and separate sporting activity, which is close to professional or really regular sporting activity, and this basic healthy lifestyle, a certain culture that is involving people and taken into a different level. There are many articles and descriptions that in advanced countries, Moscow on income really compares to Western countries. Because of chronic diseases, we're losing 45% of GDP. And when we started fighting COVID pandemic, all the conferences on healthcare have discussed the chronic diseases epidemic, diabetes, Moscow and Russia generally, cardiovascular diseases, number one. Sadly, we're one of the leaders worldwide. Okay, obesity is another factor contributing to heavier load to the healthcare system. It's probably not possible to impact those non-infectious diseases in other ways other than introducing more of the healthy lifestyles. So as colleagues from Singapore and Denmark mentioned, changing the human habits, setting up, like Misha Gromov, when we meet at different sporting events, we always discuss, you have to introduce new traditions, new habits. So if you look at how people lived in the Soviet Union times, and there were, standards, comprehensive standards for regular attitudes to sport. And then we lost a lot of that, some of that, and it's slowly coming back. So we believe it's really important to take the further steps. As you said rightly, Moscow is a leader in Russia, and a lot of being done to establish new infrastructure for healthy lifestyles to support different events. But as we see, this has to be emphasized in different aspects, with number one being, as our Singapore colleague mentioned, number one being proper communications, informing the population on healthy lifestyles. If you interrogate people in the street, you'll get extremely varying responses. And again, more and more investments in infrastructure. Look at New York, London, many other Western cities, European cities, so that the next step, as Sergei, our mayor, said, we have to unite transport corridors for public transportation vehicles and private cars. You have to bring that in harmony with sporting routes, long-distance sporting routes for activities like cycling. I do some triathlon in my free time. So 3 laps in the park, I'm lazy for that. I'm tired with my own square. You cannot go further, or you have to have your car to go to another location with parking accessibility. So as our colleague from Singapore said, you have to bring down the obstacles, the barriers. It's nice to cycle in Odintsova, which is outside of the main Moscow city limits. But it's hard to carry your bicycle by hand to cross roads or to take overhead paths or underground paths. It's hard. So there are some enclaves for cycling availability, but they're not interconnected. So there are barriers. If you compare some figures I looked up, around New York there are several hundreds of continuous green routes, so they can take your bicycle in Manhattan and continuously go all the way uptown and upstate. So this will help in changing the habits, bringing the daily sporting in, and your recreation patterns will be different. In the US, outdoor recreation industry is a big one. There's the hiking, cycling, and that is number 4 in its contribution to economy after banks, insurance, and IT. We only see the birth of that in Russia. When you buy cycling helmets or skis, this will mostly be Italian-made, Austrian-made, well, Chinese. 2 observations, please. I am predictable. I'm getting already questions, responses to my questions. Okay, let's not make New York an ideal location. They do have the issues. Well, we have been watching some trends, so interested in what's going on and which way to go. In fact, in sporting, there's this pyramid with the Olympic champions on the top, and the base of this pyramid is just simple enthusiasts. But whatever was built in the Soviet Union times was a great basis. Well, we should also make the Soviet Union times ideal. Well, because I live there, I'm pretty old compared to you guys, but we are restoring some things. There have been pros and cons at the time. Well, I agree to that. But it is important to go on and to improve infrastructure, improve communications, some event like marathon race. We will, interrogate Metro because they have set up a closed club. No, it's an open type club. No, I cannot run because I have knees issues. So I'm out of that club. So Dmitry, tell me about this running community. Are you, open for criticism? Do you have any programs for people who don't run at all? I am an open critic, and I am open to criticism by others. So in social media, I can read and hear a lot of criticism, and we are prepared to offer advice so that the running community is there, right? But it has huge growth potential. And we're just at the start of the way. So I believe I can start telling my story. So what is the Moscow running community? Well, this is rather a vague term, but we are organizing most massive marathon races in the country. So we are over 8 years old. We've been focusing on running community. We inspire people, Muscovites and others, to run, to involve more and more people. So we are proud of our events. Look at the slide. 20 events a year, and that includes children participation. 284,000 unique participants. That's a large audience. And out of those, 125,000 do that annually. And we're proud of our volunteers, 6,500 of them. And that's our own volunteer force. Sorry for butting in. I need some of your volunteers because I'm organizing these student games in the Yekaterinburg city. So I need to get an access to this good volunteer base. So I'll talk to you later. Okay, but then you'll have to stop my clock. Stop my clock. Otherwise, I will be short of time. Oh yeah, the volunteer program is important, and I'm coming back to that a little late. We are proud of those figures, you see. And this is a result. 32 participants at the Moscow Marathon race. That's a good figure. We're also proud of our average age, 25 to 36. When we started, there were young people, university students, actually almost graduates. Hopefully I switch over. So we talk about what is the purpose of our project, what is the use for the city, we discuss that. Why do you need the Moscow Marathon race? All the city and all the projects we do, they are trend setters for the new healthy lifestyle for the whole country. We see that the city mayors or the governors of this, they copy the experience we have shown, and they do that, everyone.
We also give a trend to the healthy population, healthy nation, via our sport racing and running events, being focused on the longevity and through sports. Running is the simplest form, and it's less costly than the cycling, etc. People just have to be willing to do that, have to have special track shoes, and that's it. And we are giving a trend for overall examination, and people now start thinking about their health, and that is a very powerful trend nowadays. So people start undergoing through the annual medical examination. So people who run with us came into that, go into that kind of sports and they do it eternally. And sometimes they do the cycling. I do the biathlon and roller skates, and we are actually shooting, running, skiing, etc. And the entire running audience are those people who are very positive, and they are always smiling, laughing, and as opposed to those crying and being distressed. And what else we add and to the citizens? First of all, we start communicating. Sometimes when we sit home, we do this communication via social media, but people coming together and taking part in that marathon race demonstrate their optimism, enthusiasm, and communicate with their co-mates, and people are really enthusiastic in doing that, and amidst the pandemic. And people systematically should go in for sports, and that's how we try to incentivize them. And it was not just that in 2010 it appeared that the running community was formed in Moscow, but it all happened in the 80s. The Moscow International Marathon encompassed 300 people, and it was the first ever marathon in Moscow in 1981. The running community, as of 1981 up to 2010, has underwent the stage of developing, peak, and decline. But we have to support the audience, and really we have to incentivize everything within our community. And so back in 2010 at the Moscow International Marathon of the World, we had 3.5 thousand attendees, and these audience is aging, unfortunately. We had people up to 45 and older. But nowadays we have a new story for the series of Moscow Marathon. In 2013, it was 6. There were 6 rounds, 6 events altogether, and the running clubs, by the way, were developing really rapidly. In 2010, we used to have only 10 clubs, and that was the oldest named world. But nowadays we have 850 clubs for the fans of running, and they are quite an audience. They want to be to do it as a PT, for communication, professionally, for health, and the largest club is I Love Running, and they on a weekly basis organize these trainings, and it's a really gigantic network. Also, we have small-sized clubs. They align 1 or 2 leaders on the average, and there are 11 people in the club. And also we have just corporate running clubs like Rosnano, Rosatom, and others, as well as the higher educational establishments, their running clubs as well. So the running community, Park Run, encompasses about 40,000 participants, and these are 24 park cranes altogether. And Die Hard is a new community. It encompasses more than 1,800 people. They are more professional. They are running faster. They do it on a weekly basis, and these are long-term trainings and long-term events. And I come closer to my last slide. Altogether, we have 500,000 runners, 300,000 take part in various events. The Moscow Marathon has a gigantic audience for fans, and this is really very substantial for us. And it is very substantial for COVID audience to know that there are fans, and also 6,500 volunteers, and for 4,000 events of various levels organized in Moscow. And we are running out of time, but altogether, in order to develop the audience, we really have to support it, and we have to enhance it. A special infrastructure is necessitated. A colleague of mine told me about it, that we have to develop infrastructure. We have to have manage. We have to have other facilities. We have an audience, but there is not much space to run all alone. And we'd rather have some kind of tracks in various districts of Moscow. It should be like multifaceted events of various kinds, and also thus we may incentivize the audience, stimulate the audience, and we really need managers for that. And our habitual marathon majors and other ones may become a part of this movement. And really, we have the line of Boston or New York marathon races. So we're running out of time, but this is actually what we are living for. This is our future generation. They have a chance to run and do it in the future. What kind of question would you like me to put to you? We are partners at the Church of Stockholm. What do you plan to have there? Looks very cool. Thank you so much. I'll probably view this problem from another angle. And healthy lifestyle is not a trend. It's kind of a hype, and tectonic changes which take place in the sphere of healthcare. And I am positive that today those 4P, 4-5, 6-5, and when we have prevention, participation, and prophylactics, they become indispensable as the system for treatment comes to the essence of the healthcare system. Prevention goes first. And in order to avoid a disease, you have to do all that. And our T2D diabetes is something which we're very much concerned of. And if a person changes his lifestyle, that will be our great achievement. That is a necessity. Not a single system of medical care may do anything about it if you do not help yourself. And actually, that's the aging, that's the new RNA changes, coronaviruses, etc. They all affect your health status. And we need to give some kind of a good prerequisite for a person to exercise the healthy lifestyle. And the business takes very active part in that particular process. And we do plan to have a wellness longevity center at the territory of MMK, and also we're supposed to have the Center for Longevity as well as we do in our area. Okay, so Niels represents a fund jointly with KB Strelka, and they are launching a program, Cities Changing Diabetes. And one of the key factors which turns the life of human beings into a torture could actually somehow change the vision. And I would like Niels to say a few words about this new program to combat T2D.
The philosophy, the concept of this
program,
please.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to listen to the many good practices that exist in Moscow at this stage. Tomorrow we are launching the inclusion of Moscow City in the Cities Changing Diabetes program tomorrow afternoon, together with the Youth Council of the Moscow Health Department, the Moscow Urban Forum, Strelka, KB, the Moscow Diabetes Association, and the Chief Endocrinologist of Moscow. And we hope that we can use all of the good experiences of Moscow to inspire other cities around the world, and as well also provide an opportunity for you in Moscow to also learn from the many good experiences from around the world. As I said in the beginning, Moscow will be number 39 in the group of cities, and there are cities on all 5 continents. And I really am happy for the commitment of the city of Moscow to join the program.
I've been to 212 countries. For me, Moscow always will be number 1. And я считаю, что мы провели отличную панель. Она вообще...
It was not a discussion. It was a very powerful advertising campaign for the healthy lifestyle. Let's run, let's swim, let's eat less, if you may cope with that. And actually, we have to have infrastructure, good infrastructure, to be loved, to be healthy, wealthy, and slim. And see you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.